And then at the end of my shift, couldn't find my keys. They weren't in my pocket. They weren't in my purse. They weren't in my drawer. I couldn't find my keys. I can just remember thinking, all right, okay, what else are you going to throw at me? So I just remember slowly walking out and hoping that my vehicle was still there because I must have left my keys, in my vehicle. And as I walked around the corner in the parking lot, not only was it there, but I had left it running for the entire time. And so I just remember getting in and, turning the key off seemed like a good idea at the time. And you can just see it and remember just putting my head on the steering wheel and just big sigh and just thinking I'm as empty as my gas tank now is. Just let myself run completely empty.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become their favorite versions of themselves and to strive for overall health by healing their relationship to food and exercise, healing their relationship to their body, and most importantly, healing their relationship to themselves, all without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time someone shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. So we've been talking about relaxing weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's just so important to find that time to just ground and not be so busy because our lives can be so overwhelming and busy sometimes, and to just purposefully take that time.
Yeah. And to add guilt-free to it, because I know there's a lot of people who are stuck in this hustle culture and it's move, move, move. And I'm raising my hand. I used to be one of those people, and it's move, 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 move. And from the moment you get up till you go to sleep. And if you take a break, that means you're lazy.
Oh,
yeah.
I know. And it's really, I talk about this story quite a bit when I talk to people about starting to just be in the present more, just, coming and grounding and being in the present. And I know I'm giving my age away a little bit when I remember the first battery operated typewriter. And, like before that, I lived in a small town just outside of the city. And when we were in the car driving somewhere, you were just present. Like we had it already kind of built in there, this presence. And so you would look at the scenery, or you might read a book or talk with the people in the car, or, play the license plate game or whatever. But I can remember I used to take the bus to visit my brother in a different city, which was about 2.5 hours away. And normally I would the same thing, look at the scenery, read a book, whatever. But when I got that battery operated typewriter, I decided I was going to use that time to do my schoolwork instead.
Yeah.
And I lost that time, right? And that's what I think is really all these things that we have been invented to save our time, whether it's cell phone, which are handy. I mean, I have a cell phone too. It's not that I don't have one, but all these things designed to save our time are actually taking up our time.
Yeah.
We don't have those pockets of just having nothing to do anymore. There's always something.
Yeah, sometimes I catch myself because I go for walks now for completely different reasons than I used to. Before it was how many calories can I burn, and now it's I'm gonna go walk. I'm gonna listen to music. I'm gonna look at the beautiful park that I'm walking in, And sometimes, because my music comes from my phone, I'll catch myself walking and looking at my phone. I'm like, no, this isn't why I'm here. I'm here to clear my mind. Yeah, it's good for my body too, but I'm really doing it for my headspace.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
So important. And it is funny how one glance at your phone and suddenly, 20 minutes later, you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't what I meant to do. Well, that's okay. You can just kind of give yourself a little grace and move on to what you were supposed to be doing, whether it was relaxing or being quiet. And I love to talk about walking. So it's funny that you brought it up because for me, not everybody walks, and I'm kind of inconsistent with taking those kind of walks where you go out and take a walk. But we all move from place to place. We
Mm-hmm.
all, like, when I get up in the morning, I go from the bedroom to the kitchen. I walk from the kitchen, to the living room, or from my car to an appointment. We all have places that we move, whether it's walking or in whatever way you move. Um, and I call those transition steps. And
Mm-hmm.
really, we actually don't use them as well as we could, because often when you're moving from place to place, especially when you get up in the morning and you walk to your kitchen, your thoughts are going on all the things you've got to do in a day, right? And so I have a little challenge that I throw out to everybody. Use that time, whether it's that little 5-second walk from here to there, to quiet down those thoughts rather than keeping them going. Because I promise you, all the things that you got to do in the day. You've already figured it out. You don't need to think about
Yeah.
it for those 5 or 10 seconds that you're walking, and just focus on the miracle of your muscles
Mm-hmm.
moving and balancing, and maybe whether your arms are swinging or does your hair bounce a little bit when you're walking, and really focus on that. And if you can find those pockets where you're moving from space to space and slow your thoughts down, it makes a whole difference to your day, rather than letting those thoughts run all the time.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. And
Yeah.
then perhaps you'll actually remember your walk from point A to point B. Sometimes, we can go from our living room to the kitchen, and because all of these thoughts are constantly in our head, we don't even remember how we got there.
Or why we went there in the first place, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Right. And
Yeah.
it takes practice. I mean, when you first start doing it, your brain has been taught that those are times that we let our thoughts go. And so when you first start to adjust to grounding yourself, really focusing on the walking, your brain's going to go, but yeah, but this is when we think. And so it's just, acknowledging that, thanks for that. And you can almost, like a conveyor belt, let it move through your head and drop off. But right now I really want to focus on my walking.
Mm-hmm.
And just you give yourself, I always talk about it, it's a practice, it's not a perfect, right? You
Yeah.
start to work on changing that so you can slow that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can change your mindset about what movement means to you.
Mhm.
Specifically, I work with people who have a poor relationship with food, exercise, body. And so many people are like I was 5 years ago, and they only move their body to see how many calories they can possibly burn
Right.
rather than moving their body to, you know, for their mental health, or moving their body to see, oh, how much can I lift today? How much strength do I have?
Yeah.
And so yeah, when you look at it that way, it can help change your entire perspective of what movement really is for.
Absolutely. I love
Yeah.
that you put that spin on it. I think I you're right. We sometimes have this movement must be this or it's not important kind of movement.
Hmm.
Like you said, if I'm not carrying this much weight or walking fast enough or going uphill or all those things, it's not important. But every bit of movement is important,
Hmm.
like you said, to your mental health, which also helps your physical health too, right?
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was facilitating a group, and part of the group was for anxiety and depression. And part of the group was half of the 2 hours we spent on mindfulness or presence. And I had a fella in the group who was off work because of anger and anxiety and depression. Every time we did kind of a mindfulness exercise and we left them with that for the week, he would like, I don't know about this hippie stuff that you're talking about, right? And we would giggle about it. And he went back to work while he was in group, and he came back the next week, and that happened to be the week that we were practicing mindful walking. So, right, not just going out and walking, but using your transition steps to be mindful. And he came back, he says, I really thought about this hippie stuff, but it works. He said, I went back to work, and a few days after he went back to work, he got called into his boss's office, and it might have been a 3-minute walk. And he said, so I used your mindful walking. I could just see it. I used your mindful walking. And he said, and my thoughts had slowed down, because immediately he went to, oh, what am I in trouble for now? What am I, why do I
Yeah.
have to go to the boss's office? Which is what used to happen. But he decided to use that mindful walking to really focus on his walking rather than in his running thoughts. And when he got to his boss's office, his boss said, I just wanted to call you in because I wanted to let you know, I noticed you're doing really well. It's
Hmm.
nice to have you back. And the fella said, he's like, I don't think I would have been able to hear that had I let my thoughts run. He would have been right on the defense, ready to fight by the
Yeah.
time he got there, letting his thoughts run. But in just slowing his thoughts down, he was in a way better place to listen to what his boss wanted to say. Yeah.
Yeah. That dreaded walk to the boss's office. What
Yeah.
I do now.
Right. Or any kind
Yeah.
of place. Like if you're going to a medical appointment or a job interview or an important meeting, any of those things where your thoughts can be going, okay, what do I need to remember? I can honestly say that that is probably the most important time to really focus on what your body's doing and all of the things with your walk to slow those
Hmm.
thoughts down. Again, you're already prepared for this.
Yeah.
And just because you go into it in a much better space.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I can kind of relate to that in that I don't ever have a preset list of questions for my guests, because I think if I did, then I would get into that, like, I don't want to say panicky, but like, what's next? What's next? Like, what do I, versus like, let's just have an organic conversation and let's get to know each other.
Right, right. And I love that when
Yeah.
can I just start the recording? Yeah, absolutely. These conversations are the best.
Hmm.
Conversations when you're just here in the moment and focusing on that and answering that. Because I actually didn't think we were going to talk about this today. And I love that we are, because it's important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with Lesley Evans.
Hey, everybody.
We did just meet, I promise. About 14 minutes ago, we just met.
We did.
Yeah. Um, so tell me a little bit about you. Who is Lesley Evans?
Oh, who is Lesley Evans? Oh, isn't that a loaded question, isn't
Take as
it?
long as you need.
Yes. So I'm Lesley Evans, and I live in this beautiful, actually about an hour and a half away from this picture you see behind me, which is Lake Louise. So I live about an hour away from the Canadian Rockies in a place called Calgary, Alberta. And I can tell you that my training is as a registered psychiatric nurse therapist. So I've been doing that for over 30 years.
Mm.
Wow, I graduated in 1991. Yes, it was that long ago. Yeah. And I'm also a clinical hypnotherapist. I also am an Akashic guide. So if you go to the woo side, then that is the Akashic records. And I'm a Reiki master. The Akashic records is where we find our soul wisdom, where our soul journey is recorded. It's the easiest way to explain it. So basically, I just blend all of that together and help people to really rise up and be the most amazing being that they are. That sometimes we hold back, whether it's from anxiety or depression or self-limiting thoughts or negative thoughts, any of those things that hold us back. So I blend all of that together and I just help you to let those go and create whatever you want your most amazing life to look like. One of my colleagues calls it your ideal existence. To create your ideal existence, and I love that. So yeah, I have three beautiful grown daughters, and they're all adults, and I have almost 4-year-old grandson and another second grandchild on the way. Married. What else do you want to know? I love being in Hawaii where it's quiet and calm. And I love being here too, and up in the mountains. This is Lake Louise, like I was saying. And that is, again, if you move toward the woo, it's Archangel Michael's vortex, is what they say is Lake Louise. So I get to be about an hour and a half away from that. That is my quick little introduction as to who I am and what kind of space. I also host summits. I just did a summit last week called the Rise Up Summit. And so that's just 2 days of having people that help with transformation and healing, share their wisdom, and just help the people that are tending to rise up and transform and be their ideal existence. And I have one the end of October called Rise Revolution. And that is for midlife women.
Awesome.
So, and that again is just reminding the midlife women that it's just the beginning. So it doesn't have to be, sort of the beginning of the end. This is just the beginning. And so that's the summit that I'll be hosting on October 24th as well.
Now, you say midlife, is that like a specific age or does that depend on the person participating?
I think it really depends on the person. I like to say kind of around 40-ish. However, there's lots of people that are feeling those midlife things earlier, right? And so I don't like to say, no, it's only 40 and above, because having those midlife feelings really can start really anytime. And honestly, I would love a lot of younger women to discover what a lot of the women in their midlives are discovering too, that, life is about more than just taking care of all of the people around you, that, the things that you want or you love or the things that you're passionate about are just as important as everyone else around you. And we tend to forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked you that selfishly because I'll be 40 in April. And so,
this one is for you.
I feel like 39 exists, but when I'm asked my age, I've been saying, oh, I'll be 40 next year. Rarely do I say I'm 39.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
When I turned 40, I can remember a lot of people saying, oh, I'm almost 40, and like, oh no, like this and this. I can remember on my 40th birthday looking around and thinking, I'm so glad that I'm in this age. I wouldn't have everything that I have if I wasn't 40, right? Like I wouldn't have my kids and my growing kids and all that. And so it was a different perspective on 40 than you hear a lot. So good for you for saying, well, I'm almost 40. So let's celebrate.
Yeah, I'm excited. I haven't celebrated a birthday in a long time, and I'm having a huge party at my mom's house. And it's interesting, you were mentioning it's different for everybody. My husband dreaded when he turned 40. He's 47 now. Actually, yesterday I was like, I can't wait till you're 50. You got 3 years. But yeah, it was totally different for the two of us. I'm looking forward to it. Um, Not that I think anything's gonna change overnight from 39 to 40, but it's like I feel like it's, what do people call it? New beginnings. I don't know. It's just I'm excited.
That's awesome. And but
Yeah.
you can start all that now, right? Like you can
Yeah.
start all those things that you want to change now and celebrate them when you turn 40. That it's this, yeah. And I found a lot of women in that midlife age. So I would say 40-ish. So whether it's a few years before or a couple of years after, it's kind of that age where it's like, huh, wow, like what have I done all this time and what do I want to do?
Hmm.
But it's not always easy to make those changes when you've spent 40 years kind of being one way,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I created the summit. So I'd love
I'll
you to
put
come
all the
to the summit.
links in the show notes if you want me to.
Okay, I will
Yeah,
definitely,
for
yeah,
sure.
it's riserevolutionsummit.com. You want to, it's free to
Okay.
register. And we're just going to have everything kind of from healers to people that are experts in sexuality to people that are experts in hormones to transformation, all of it, everything, and it's
Mm.
all just based on that midlife woman. So again, if you're kind of coming up to that midlife and you want to be more prepared for it, absolutely come to the summit, because that revolution doesn't have to wait until you're 40,
Yeah.
right? It just
Yeah.
often does.
Hmm.
So if you want to look at it before you're 40, you are more than welcome. I would love to help you with that revolution and limitless living.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, me too.
So, just to kind of shift gears a little bit,
Yes.
what is your story and how do you think got you, not it, how do you think it got you to everything that you're doing now?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So it's funny that we had this conversation before about midlife, because my story actually started with a checklist,
Mm.
a checklist of everything I thought I wanted in life. I graduated from psychiatric nursing. I got a job in public mental health. I married my college sweetheart. We got a house, three beautiful girls. I'll, check, 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 check. I'm guessing you probably had that checklist when you were young too. That check.
Oh yeah.
These are the things that I want in life. I was primary support to my mom, and as I just kept checking those things off, I actually really just lost myself to that checklist. My checklist, or the things on my checklist, became more important than me.
Mm.
And all of that really came to a culmination when I was having a conversation with my eldest. She was 16 at the time. And she was having trouble with a boy, which happens to all of our
Yeah.
kids in those teenage years. She had stopped doing the things she loved to do. She stopped singing, she'd stopped dancing, and she was doing things she wouldn't normally do to be with this boy. And so I gave her the great motherly advice to, if they care about you, they'll encourage you to do the things that you love. They won't ask you to do things that, you don't want to do, and that you should only be with somebody who encourages you to be your best you, not discourages you. And it was great advice, and she did break off with that boy and found a boyfriend that supported that much more, for sure. But what happened was I realized that in all of the years with my kids and putting all of them first, and, my husband first, and my mom and my work, what I thought I was teaching them was they were the most important things in my life and that they mattered more than anything. And they knew that. They knew that. But what I was also teaching them was when they loved someone, that their needs went last. That's what I was
Mm.
modeling to them. And that wasn't okay with me. I wanted my girls to live amazing, inspired, passionate lives when they knew that the things that were important to them were just as important as everybody else. And so I had a good chat with myself, and I sat down and I was very, I sat quietly and just thought I've got to make some changes. And so I did. I started to make those changes. And one of those changes was leaving a marriage of 21 years.
Mm.
What we were doing to each other wasn't awesome, and what we were doing to our kids was not good either. And so we separated, and I moved out with my girls and my mom, who lived with us at the time. And yet you'd think everything had changed there. I made that change, which was significant,
Yeah.
but I still worried about my kids and their transition. I still worried about my people at work. I worried about my mom, and I still was doing that. And I remember one day, like with any separation and divorce, it isn't always easy, even when you both agreed upon it. And it was tough at times. And I remember going home for lunch one day, and I can't remember what it was, but it was that one thing that kind of broke the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back. And I remember driving back to work, because I worked in urgent mental health at the time, helping people in crisis. I had 3.25 hours left to go. And I drove up. I remember taking a breath and going, okay, here we go. This is what I do. And I walked out and I did my 3.25 hours work. I saw all the people that I needed to see, that needed me, that were in crisis. And then at the end of my shift, couldn't find my keys. They weren't in my pocket. They weren't in my purse. They weren't in my drawer. I couldn't find my keys. I can just remember thinking, all right, okay, what else are you going to throw at me? By the way, don't do that. Don't ever throw that out to the universe. What else can you throw at me? Because you're just daring the universe to throw more at you. Don't do that. So I just remember slowly walking out and hoping that my vehicle was still there, because I must have left my keys, in my vehicle. And as I walked around the corner in the parking lot, not only was it there, but I had left it running for the entire time. And so I just remember getting in and, turning the key off seemed like a good idea at the time. And you can just see it and remember just putting my head on the steering wheel and this big sigh and just thinking I'm as empty as my gas tank now is. Just let myself run completely empty. So busy taking care of everybody else. That was a big moment, because not only am I a woman, a mother, I was also a therapist. I help people with this. I help people to see this going on in their lives, right? And I was empty, and I just remember driving home. I think I had $10 left in my account, so I put that into my vehicle, which was a huge expedition. It doesn't put very much in there, but I got home, and again, I knew, like, I'm not going to make it through this if I don't do something for myself. And so, again, I made that choice that it was time to start filling my cup. And again, that's not an easy thing when you've been that, self-sacrificing, doing everything for everybody else. So here's a few things that I'll tell you along the way. But what happened in that journey is that I realized that my therapy, which was really good and really good at helping people from that conscious point of view, It was good. It helped a lot of people, but it didn't promote that sustained and profound healing that
Mhm.
people could kind of like feel like this is how I'm supposed to feel. They would feel better. They could get on with their lives, but not this. Wow. So I started to seek out different types of healing and had some certifications along the way and opened up my world um, to the universe. And so that's when I got my hypnotherapy certification, which helps with the subconscious. And I also became an Akashic guide, which helps with that sort of soul level healing. And so that's really what brought me here today. And I worked, like I said, in public mental health for almost 25 years and was really like it really blocked my ability to heal people in this more profound and deep way where they could lead, because a lot of the people I helped kept coming back because they were better, but they weren't ready to fly, right? And
Yeah.
so I just couldn't do that anymore. So I left public mental health and went into private practice where I mean, my whole job is to help you to fly away and not need me anymore, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so it just takes a lot of small steps, giving yourself a lot of grace along the way and learning more about yourself.
Mm, I love your story. I want to rewind back to the beginning when you talked about that checklist.
Mhm.
And so often the people that do have this checklist don't realize they can change it. They don't realize you're allowed to change your mind. You don't just set, like, I'll use goals, for example. Like, the whole point of having a goal is to get into motion. 9 times out of 10, your goal changes as you get into motion because you realize, okay, I don't want it exactly like this, you know? And so, like, the checklist, I want all these things in my life, and you start to get into motion and you realize some of these things I don't want, and it's okay. But we get stuck thinking we have to stick to this list because we made this list when we were X years old, and that's what we're going to do.
This was my dream. Why don't I like this
Yeah.
dream anymore? You're right.
Mhm.
It's okay to not like all those things that you had on your checklist anymore. It's okay to want more than what was on your checklist. It's okay to want less.
Mhm.
It's okay to want different things. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because you're right. We get so caught up in making sure we check all those things off. We don't even realize that, hmm, this actually wasn't what I wanted,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I love that you said it's okay to change your mind.
Yeah.
Right? You're not stuck.
This is kind of what I do in the health world, where people get so caught up in the numbers, the
Mhm.
tracking calories, tracking protein, tracking carbohydrates, tracking fat, tracking steps, and they get so focused on I need to do all these things that the stress that the obsession causes, and I mostly work with people who become obsessed with it. There's people that can do it in a healthy way.
Yeah,
But the ones that become obsessed with it, they get so stressed out that the stress of doing all the tracking is doing more harm to their body than if they were to go eat a cookie or a donut or a piece of cake.
absolutely. And
Mhm.
and the exact thing you're talking about is things that I help women with too. Like, it's one of the aspects of just letting go of that, of those
Yeah,
restrictions and that control and needing it to be like this and the numbers and all of those things, because they really don't help you to be where you want to be in the end, do they?
right. And it creates this disconnect between mind and body.
Yeah.
And And it's not to say you're letting go of health. You're not letting that go. You're just learning to have a better relationship to the food, to the exercise, which helps you create a better relationship to your body and to yourself. And
Yeah.
so it's this, yeah, it's not necessarily letting, like, if you stop tracking calories, you're still eating, right? So it's not like you're letting go. It's just you're letting go of the stress of the obsession. Yeah.
I think we also have forgotten that our bodies are incredibly wise.
Hmm.
And if we sit and listen to them, they'll tell us, our bodies will tell us what they need. And we get so busy in all of the information coming at us, like you're supposed to have this much protein, this much carbs, these many calories, this much movement, that we stop listening to our own bodies.
Hmm.
And who better than to tell us what we need than our own body,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that, ignore all that information out there, because that's not right. Some of it is really important, but we can get so focused on that we forget. And I love that you said that. Doing all that is worse than having a cookie.
Yeah.
Have the darn cookie.
And don't track it.
Right? Like, we got to give ourselves a bit of grace along the way. It doesn't mean that everything's falling apart because you had a cookie.
Right.
Right? You can get up and
Hmm.
you can walk your walk again. It's just a cookie.
Yep. And a lot of times when you don't eat the cookie, you'll eat something else to try to replace the cookie. And then that didn't satisfy you. So you eat something else. And then that didn't satisfy you. And then you eat something else. And then that didn't satisfy you. Hold on, breathe. And then you
Yeah.
end up eating the cookie and the whole package of cookies. So, like, yeah,
You
it's a
know,
total mental shift when you just let yourself eat the damn cookie
see the
and move on with your life.
exactly. And
Yeah.
when we create that restricted list, and I know you know this working in the field that you do, when we create that restricted list, we actually create this psychological, path in our mind that when we resist eating it, just like you said, when we finally say, okay, I got to have that cookie, you don't just stop at one.
Hmm.
You have the whole package. Whereas if you just allow it, you stop, okay, this doesn't need to be on the restricted list, but I can have one, then
Hmm.
you're quite satisfied with just having one cookie because you didn't restrict it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the same thing with anything that we deem unhealthy or whatever is, you know, giving ourselves a little bit of grace and a little bit of freedom to make a choice like that and it not be the end of the world.
Hmm. Yeah. And, there's a lot of fear mongering going on the internet. Fear, and people are so confused about what's good and what's bad. Like some people freeze and they don't eat anything because they don't know what to do. There's a lot of misinformation roaming around on the internet.
It
So
sure is.
my advice to the listeners would be if you hear information, diet or movement wise, just look it up. You know, find the study that it came from. And 9 times out of 10, there's no study. It's
Right.
just blah, blah, blah.
Right. It's just
Yeah.
somebody that's got an opinion.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And honestly, I'm all about bringing more joy in our lives and having more times where we love what's going on in our lives. And restricting food that we enjoy, that's not bringing more joy in my life, right? If
Hmm.
there's one thing we do all the time and it's eat, why not enjoy it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, yeah, right. That doesn't mean that you eat 5 bags of chips in a day, but you can have a handful
Hmm.
and you can enjoy that handful.
Yeah. And if you did eat 5 bags of chips, did you really enjoy it?
See?
Hmm.
There you go.
Or did you feel like shit afterwards because your stomach was like, hell no?
What did you just do to me?
Yeah.
But you can enjoy the handful, right? You
Yeah.
can enjoy every bite of it and then move on.
Hmm.
Yeah. I'm all about enjoying the eating and the food that we're eating
Hmm.
and that time because we do a lot. We do eat a lot. Oh, stop punishing yourself during meal times and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. The letting go piece is that what you're talking about right now is not overthinking about what's on your plate and just sitting and being present and enjoying your meal, especially when it's with other people. I love
Yeah.
those long, drawn out meals where you have like the bread and then an hour later you have your main course and then an hour later, like the long being with people and just enjoying life and not thinking about how many calories is in this piece of bread. Oh my gosh, carbs.
Oh, I'm not supposed to have bread. I gotta tell you
No.
a funny story about that. So my eldest got married in April. And so, the 6 months before that, I thought, oh, put on a bit of weight. I want to look great for the wedding. And I wasn't following my own advice. And I was like, okay, can't have bread.
Mm,
And I went out for a steak dinner that came with garlic bread on the side. And actually, for that whole time that I was not eating bread, I actually gained a couple of pounds.
mm,
I wasn't losing weight. And when I went out for dinner, I just sat quietly and I just listened. And it was like, have the bread, like have the garlic bread. And I enjoyed it immensely. I mean, the garlic bread is amazing.
yeah.
And so I enjoyed it with my dinner and I started to bring bread back in. And guess what? I started to lose the weight because I listened to what my body was telling me. My body didn't tell me not to have bread.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so when I listened, it's not like I had a loaf of bread every day. I had a piece of
Yeah.
garlic toast with dinner, right?
Yeah.
And my body started to relax because, my body was starting to worry that I was going to start restricting. And
Yeah.
so went into that mode where it started protecting and started holding on to those cells, right? Afraid that I
Hmm.
was going to start restricting. And so when I kind of let go of that again, my body finally said, oh, okay, here we go. Okay, now we can let this go. We don't have to keep the fat stores because now you're eating again. Yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't take me long to figure that out. But it's funny how, and that brings up another point. Even when we're on the right track, sometimes we go off,
Yeah.
and that's okay. We can get right back on it again. You're not stuck.
Yeah. And then it also depends on what your definition of right track is,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Because maybe falling off is part of the track.
I am a strong believer that we're exactly where we're supposed to be in this moment.
Hmm.
And that even if we are off the track, right, of where we thought we were heading, we're still in the exact right spot. That it may have been a lesson we either needed to learn or we weren't on the right track
Yeah.
to begin with, right? But you're
Yeah.
exactly where you're supposed to be in this very moment.
Yeah. And that goes back to that checklist.
Mhm.
Yeah. Maybe that checklist wasn't the correct checklist for you.
Well, we often make our checklists when we're young, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's okay to cross things off the checklist, just like you said, as you get older and you get a little bit wiser and you have a bit more experience, and those things on your checklist weren't everything that you thought they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more question for you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I ask everyone at the end of every episode, and that is, If you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
Mm. My advice is, and we spoke about this, is to give yourself grace. That, we are, oh, there's going to be a couple pieces of advice here, but I'm going to start
Okay.
with, we are on this journey, and we fall down and we get up again, and other people around us are falling down and getting up again. And that's all part of the journey, and to give yourself grace along the way. Don't be so hard on yourself. Um, when things don't go exactly the way you thought that they were supposed to. Um, so give yourself grace is one of the biggest things. Be easy on yourself. But the other thing that's really coming up for me is, you're worthy. You don't have to do more. You don't have to give more. You don't have to have more. You don't have to be more. You're worthy right here, as you are in this very moment. And it's time to realize that you're worthy, and to start taking those steps toward doing those things you might love, or having those things you might love. You're worthy of it. You're deserving of it. And you don't have to do or be anything more than what you are right in this moment.
Beautiful beasts, Lesley Evans signing off. Until next time.